Hello Zlata, Blair Falk here from South Georgia. It's a beautiful February here in South Georgia with the weather being about 25 degrees Celsius today. Who can complain about that? This is the second video that I'm sending you, and I have played some songs. They're full of mistakes and some off tones and some things, so maybe you should put a little cotton in your ears or something like that. But what I decided to do was to ask a few specific questions and to illustrate what I mean by the questions, maybe make your questions answering or your answers being a little bit easier for you. The songs I picked, if you want to comment on them, that's fine. There's stuff that I picked out by ear, and like I said, they've got a few errors here and there, or maybe a lot of errors here and there. The first question I have for you tonight has to deal with starting off on the right note or the right tone. I know that if you're going to play with other people, you absolutely have to start on the right note. And for me, who's an old guitar player, I'm used to having the frets there to line my fingers up. And even though I've got stripes on my fiddle fingerboard here, I still have trouble getting off on the right note. For example, the Boccherini minuet that I did. Etc. I managed to get it started on the right note then, but not always. Usually what I'm doing if I'm just playing by myself is I line it up this way. And I know that's the first note. Of course, I've learned all these songs by ear, so I'm not even sure what note it is. So that's my first question. What suggestions do you have for starting off on the right note, the right tone, etc.? The second question I have has to do with changing from one string to another, some suggestions. I did look at the video about that. But one thing that I noticed, particularly in Bach and some of the others, which I again am learning by ear, that they will do things like jump to skip a string. For example, there you go from. Now my question is, how do you avoid that jump in there? How can you go from the first string to the third string without touching the second string? Do you pick the bow up high, or do you just kind of roll it across, or what? The last question I have has to do with the concept of slurring, which is a term that you use a lot. And what I'm curious about, is that also known as legato? Because when I took piano lessons years and years ago and failed to learn piano, my teacher talked a lot about legato, meaning that the notes more or less run into each other, and that may be what you're calling slurring. So for example, the Violin off that I played at, it has a long scale in it. Let's see, now we're ready. Now that's one way to play that. Another way to play it is the first is what I would call legato, and the second is not legato. And the question I have is, what is the conventional wisdom with violin playing in terms of playing slurring, as you would say, versus playing individual notes, meaning that you basically have to change the direction of the bow on each neck, on each note. So those are my three questions. I hope that perhaps they will shed some light on some of your other students, maybe some questions that they have as well. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to submit this material to you and develop our relationship. I do want to say before I go that I do have to appreciate once again your emphasis on each note sounding very good, and that is something that I'm practicing so that I can avoid, even though maybe the songs that I've given you don't really reflect that, so that every single note has a voice and sings versus a more dull sound. Hi, Zlata. In putting this video together, I realized that I still have a lot of work that I need to do on my right arm so that I can bow more perpendicularly to the strings. I can see that I'm pulling it off this way. In that way, making the video really helped me to see a problem as well as to hear problems. As always, I also recognize that I need to practice a lot more and more efficiently the way you teach us in the videos. Last but not least, thanks again for this excellent opportunity. I consider it to be a terrific value for your students, and I hope that more students will take advantage of it, and we can learn from each other that way as well as learning from you. Ciao!